What is up, Fantasyland? Welcome back to the GOAT District live via the Player Profiler Network. 6 weeks in the rearview mirror. The sample size keeps getting bigger. But what exactly do we know this time of year? And what don't we know? Are there any rookies out there that haven't popped yet? Should we be cautious rest of season with any of them that have? Is zero RB the dominating strategy for 2023? John Laub, aka the Gridiron Scholar, and the most passionate man in Fantasyland. His voice literally sets the tone, and we love having him right here in the GOAT District for his often hot but accurate takes. We have a lot to get to, so grab yourself a cold one, smash the like button, and let's get.
GOAT District, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden, they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man. Y'all know what to do. It's the and I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
What is up, Fantasyland? Welcome back into the GOAT District. And we have another big show tonight. We've got my boy Dan back from cruising the life. Dan not only went to a couple Twins games, but he sent us pictures of him in a hot tub with a couple Twins on the back of a boat one day. I don't know if that was on a lake, an ocean, but I'm glad to have my boy, the overhyped sleeper, back in the GOAT District with me. Guys, if you're tuning in for the first time, we're on every Tuesday night, starting tonight at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, right after the deep end, so you can get back-to-back high stakes, high win rate fantasy football content right here on the Player Profiler Network. And like I said, Dan, we have one of our favorites tonight. I talked about his voice, his passion. Tonight he's rocking a nice teal Dolphins hoodie. He's the gridiron Scholar. He's John Laub. John, welcome back to the district. We're pumped to have you tonight.
Yep, absolutely. Is John froze?
A bit of a freeze there.
I think he is. All right, we'll give John a minute to get things together and hopefully get unfroze. But yeah, I always love having John on the shows. He's I can run through a brick wall after I spend an hour without a doubt. So
a good way to describe it.
Yep, that's the way to go. And I mean the knowledge he has on the rookies and everything. And this is weirdly enough, I think, a great time to be talking about rookies too, because we're just a few weeks into the season, and we're looking to see these rookies that we were also high on in 2023. Some of them have popped, some of them haven't. Who do we still have hope for? All that kind of stuff. So without a doubt, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Exactly. We talk about the passion. We talk about, there he is. He's doing the exit and come back. It's like the power button of streaming. You leave the you don't know how the technology works. It's malfunctioning. You press the power button and that's what you did, John. We're glad to have you back, buddy.
I'm so sorry. We were talking before the show, and as soon as you get on the show, all of a sudden I get that circle. I'm like, that's not good.
Never fails.
That's all good, buddy. So I'm glad to be back, though.
Yep, glad to have you too. This is I was just saying, this is one of my favorite shows. I'm ready to run through a brick wall after I get done talking with you. So let's get on it.
Yeah, no, we have John here often in the GOAT district. He's definitely a college. For us, he's one of our rookie specialists. We had his buddy Matt Hicks from the Rookie Big Board. You guys are both co-host the Rookie Big Board and specialize in that area. We love having you on, but a little different right now. We're bringing you in kind of in the season, 6 weeks in. We've got a lot to get to. Let's start macro, John, and let's look. A question that I asked, your buddy Matt. You guys had a lot, of time put into this year's rookie class. How good has the 2023 class been as a whole after 6 weeks, in your opinion? And has it been above or below expectations for you?
I think it's been a little below. I expected a little bit more. I think part of it was because the quarterback's on the top. Most of us kind of, the Dynasty junkies, I would assume, play in super flex. At least that's the feeling that I get. And when you think about 3 quarterbacks in the top 4, that's pretty exciting in a super flex league. And we knew we were going to get starters right away, right? And realistically, only one of them has performed at a level that we were hoping for, and that's obviously CJ Stroud. We'll talk about him a little bit more later. Bryce Young, I have my question marks. I think I was on with you guys in February. And I had warned a little bit about Bryce Young, and I said, I don't mean to be a sizeist. It's not what I want to do. But Bryce Young's concerns about his height, when I've broken him down and watched, now there's always rookie, right? So he's still a rookie, but I feel like the height has been a concern for him. I'm sorry. I don't know if it's they're not rolling him out, if he's not intuitively finding lanes throwing the football, if it's the lack of weapons in the middle of the field. There's factors that we don't have, but at the end of the day, the eyeball test tells you that Bryce Young hasn't been very good throwing the football. Now, ironically, Adam Thielen's a star again, which is a whole nother story. He's just peppering him, but nothing else is happening.
Isn't that cliche, though, at this point, John? Like the vet receiver with the rookie quarterback,
Yeah, and he knows where he is, right? The rookie says, hey, I know Thielen's going to be there. Even if he's covered, I'm throwing the ball to him. CJ Stroud. I had CJ Stroud number 1. I never wavered on him as number 1. I thought he was incredible at Ohio State. I saw way too much of CJ Stroud. The eyeball test, the scouting report was positive. The numbers were off the charts. I think I said it on your show. I was on a bunch of shows, so I apologize. But I'm like, if you plug him in my model, CJ Stroud's numbers were just simply outstanding at Ohio State. And I just want to digress for half a second on something. I find it fascinating when NFL people and analysts and they start saying things about Stroud. They're like, oh my God, he's accurate. He's really accurate deep down the field. I'm like, did you never watch one piece of tape? Like, the one thing he had at Ohio State was incredible accuracy. Like, you could not. Now, I know he had superstar receivers. Like that was somewhat the argument, right? Oh my God, who couldn't throw the ball to those players? But you know what? He was as good as I thought. He's been simply incredible. He looks like, at worst, the Kirk Cousins quarterback in Dynasty. Who doesn't want Kirk Cousins? I'm sorry. I know he's not the bright, shiny star, but CJ Stroud looks like he's going to be a 30 to 40 touchdown guy in his prime and throw for over 4,500 yards. I'll take that. That's unbelievable. The X factor the whole offseason to me was always Anthony Richardson. Always Anthony Richardson. The numbers, my model didn't like him. I had questions about him on film. Yes, he was the bright, shiny star. I say it would be like seeing a golden nugget in 1851 in fast-moving rapids in Colorado. Like, you want to get the nugget, but you might die, right? Like, you want the nugget so bad. And Anthony Richardson, you couldn't help but notice the spectacular plays of Florida. But, man, did you watch the whole game? Did you see the other plays that he made? Now, I think one thing, we were spoiled with Cam Newton looking back. A dual threat quarterback who was that big, he survived that long, and eventually the shoulder just gave out on him. Like that is going, when we look back like 5-10 years from now, we're going to look back at Cam Newton and be like, oh my God, how did he do that? How did his body take that punishment? He was just so big and so good until the shoulder went out. He was really durable. What did he have? He had like a 5-year run there that not very many dual threat quarterbacks did what Cam Newton did, and he brought the team to a Super Bowl that was 1-15 before he arrived there. Why do I say that? Anthony Richardson never played a full season of Florida. Now, he didn't have a season. I mean, it seems like he's out for the year now, right? That's the reports we got from right? He's out for the year. He won me some money in DFS. I watched a lot of them. You can't play like that in the NFL, folks. You just can't. I'm sorry. The human body isn't meant to take on 300-pound linemen and safeties who are 250. I mean, and the shoulder gave up. And when you look at the hit, like he fell on the shoulder, right? I've seen players get hit like that, and you shake it off, maybe he misses a game. But I think that was more of a culmination of the other hits that he had taken. And all of a sudden, just the way he landed, right? Just the way the body weight landed on him, there it went. Obviously, now we're looking at a season-ending injury. He can't play that way and survive in the NFL. I'm sorry. The defensive players are just too good, too fast. So I'm concerned there. So the quarterback position hasn't been as what I hoped. I don't think we've seen another rookie. Levis hasn't been on the field.
No,
and no other rookie quarterback, right? I don't think so. No, Hooker hasn't been on. He won't be on. I don't think anyone.
Let me ask you quick, John, with regards to Richardson as a Colts fan. Is that on him to change as a quarterback? Is that on the OC? Is that on the coach? Is that, what I mean? On the system? It's on the coach.
It's on the coach. You have to teach him how to slide. I don't care if you have to bring in major league coaches who teach sliding.
How about bring in RG3 and there's a guy who had was on a similar arc, and man, if you can't get down, you're not going to last long.
And you can look at the guy who was drafted, actually to the Colts in luck, right? The same year, and they were always compared. He's another guy whose career was cut short because he was getting hit too much.
Yeah, Lux was more of a culminate. The body, I just think he knew the body was breaking down, right? Mentally, physically, just too many hits. It was because I don't think he had a season-ending injury, Luck, right? It was just, I think he just said, I can't.
Yeah, he had, I think he had something. Did he have an Achilles, or he had something that was different than his other injuries, but it was enough for him to say, I don't want to go through this again, with regards to rehab.
Like, he could have played that year, at least open the season up physically, but he just said, I'm out here. Yeah, look, there's no question the coaching staff has to force Richardson in practice. I don't know what, the modern game. I mean, are you blowing whistles in practice to make him slide? Are you bringing in sliding experts? Like, he's got to learn how to slide. You can't do that. Now, if it's the Super Bowl and you're John Elway with the helicopter flip, I get it. Like, you're going, but you can't be doing that in the third quarter of the second game of the year.
So how far does I guess, what, I'm answering my own question. I guess your concern for him long-term just depends on if he changes the way he plays, if he's going to dive or not, and how the team's going to protect him would be the obvious.
Yes, and I hope this is a learning experience. That's how this is an opportunity for him to understand that, hey, if I want to be an NFL quarterback long-term, and is long-term 5 years now? Like, we're no longer even looking at the Phillip Rivers, Ben Roethlisberger career arc. We're now looking at shorter windows. if I want to have a 5-year career after this, I've got to change how I play football. And I've got to be smarter with my body. And that's going to be something he needs to do. And, ironically, this summer, you're going to think this is weird. I was watching a lot of 80s football, a lot of Joe Montana, Dan Fouts, Dan Marino, John Elway. It's on YouTube. I'm amazed at the number of things out there. One thing that I don't know if the game is faster, the defensive players are faster. Quarterbacks were intuitively able to avoid hits more, I think. I think part of it was their pocket passers, so they had to learn how to sidestep and avoid those big hits. Like you didn't want Lawrence Taylor blindsiding you when he did Ron Jaworski in that classic highlight, right? Where he basically rips Jaworski into the turf. So I wonder if this new generation of young men are so athletic. They're so good at the high school level. They're so good at the college level that they come into the NFL and they just don't know how to avoid that slip and slide. Get the ball out of your hand. I mean, Montana was, and obviously I'm looking at a Hall of Famer, so it might be unfair, but he was the master of avoiding. Now, he did by Jim Bird of the Giants, got him once, and you see some hits. But when you look at the totality, he could get away from those big hits. I don't see these young men doing that. They just don't intuitive. Now, ironically, CJ Stroud, I think he's your classic pocket passer. Like, he's really good in that pocket.
Is he your rookie offensive MVP, rookie of the year right now?
Yes, with Achane on the sideline, there's no question that it's CJ Stroud.
Dan,
there's no question.
You agree with that? You weren't here last week with Matt. I asked him the same question.
Yeah, I think that's got to be the case right now. Now, I do think it's possible for Achane to come back, and if he rips it up down the stretch, we could be, and Houston doesn't make the playoffs or something like that.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of season to go, but yeah, right now I think you got to say it's Stroud.
Is Laporta in that? I know we're going to talk more about him later, but is he in that equation for you guys?
I think it's tough for a tight end to win.
Tough for a tight end, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I couldn't vote for a tight end unless he had 1,200 yards and Stroud just really, I guess he'd have to fall off a map.
All right, we're going to come back with a ton more with the passionate and just knowledgeable John Laub right after these messages.
This episode is brought to you by Rival Fantasy. Rival Fantasy, the coolest fantasy platform not enough people know about, but they will once I'm done, baby, because they're always innovating. They just rolled out seasonal leagues. We set them up for patrons, for our listeners, and they funded over $1,000 in payouts. That's what Rival's all about. They're always innovating. They already had the fantasy book where you can take overs and unders, stack them up, multiply your payout, but then they added challenges so you can set your own lines and put them out there for the community, and then you can browse the community's lines and say, hey, this guy's crazy, I'm going to take the other side. It's cool. And they have fantasy bingo. Rival Fantasy is reminding me how much fun I can have with fantasy football, and use that promo code PLAYER. The promo code is PLAYER. They give you a $100 instant deposit match plus $25 plus a free play. That promo code is PLAYER for up to $125 in deposit bonus and a free play. You can't beat it.
All right, we are back. Let's talk zero RB real quick before we get into specifics, looking at specific players. I mean, you look right now, top 5 running backs, John, you've got Achane, which obviously, or not Achane, sorry, his teammate, actually, Mostert.
Yep, Mostert.
And then you've got Kyren Williams. Now, my question is, they're both in the top 5 right now. And Dan, I want you to touch on this after. Is zero RB the strategy for 2023 so far? And is it the one that'll win fantasy owners leagues this year based on what we've seen so far? John?
Oh, I thought you meant Dan. I'm sorry.
Sorry, brother. No, I said I'd go to Dan after. I always like to give the special guest the floor first.
Thank you. I would say right now it looks like that. But I'll say, yes, that looks like the right strategy this early in the season. But you've got to have hit on Mostert and Kyren Williams really for this, if you did, you're at least one of them. If you got both of them, which was more than possible, then you hit the grand slam home run of all time. But let me say this. What if you draft Devontae Adams and T. Higgins? Or Devontae Adams and Jalen Waddle? Are you feeling great about it? Possibly. I don't know with the Raiders right now. What if you had Justin Jefferson and T. Higgins?
Yeah.
That team, so there's a lot of factors involved here. I would say, hey, I had a lot of teams with Nick Chubb and Bijan Robinson. So obviously those teams, aren't working right now with the running back position. But I would say in general, if we were to, look at 100,000 rosters, if that was possible, I bet you the zero running back is more successful at this point, unless you somehow got the bad luck with the wide receiver or you hit the nuts on the running back. You did get Bijan, which he might be the only one standing right out of our early draft picks. And I guess Tony Pollard, but he hasn't been great, but at least he's on the field, right? Barkley's out, Chubb's out. There, at least if you had Bijan and Pollard, you're at least standing competitively in the backfield.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the zero RB is working very well right now if you drafted the right players, but there are guys out there with, like Tank Bigsby and I'm trying to think who all else. But, I mean, there's a lot of RB0 candidates that have also, fallen flat and just haven't really done anything. So like I have a lot of teams with Kyron. I've got a lot of teams with Achane. I've got a lot of teams with Mostert. So I'm feeling great about those teams, because some of those I added Christian McCaffrey to that, and I'm trotting out 4 running backs every week and feeling fantastic. But there are other teams where they sound exactly what John described. I got Justin Jefferson and T. Higgins, and it's just like a world of hurt at wide receiver. Because you got to hit on you got to hit on both wide receiver and running back to really make the zero RB fly. The other thing, we have had a lot of injuries amongst some of the top drafted running backs. Some of those guys are coming back, like James Conner might come back. I think Aaron Jones is on his way back here. Eckler, Barkley, guys like that. And they could be massive down the stretch. So as long as your team hasn't fallen too far out of contention, even if you had a couple of those big time running backs, you still might be able to, just get right into the playoffs and, power past some other teams at that point.
Yeah, and I think that's the important part, right? Is you got to hit on the right guys. Like your strategy's got to be right, but you also have to hit the right guys. It's not just about drafting zero RB, and you're definitely going to win. So love all the input, guys, on the strategy. I know it's always the big debate, right, coming into the season. So it's nice to kind of touch on it, see how it's going. I know Fantasy Mojo will definitely have a lot of data on that, whether that's after the season or as we get further into the season. So make sure you stay on top of that. Let's get into specifics, though, John. Let's get into the weeds. We talked about Achane. I'm still calling him Achane. I don't care. We talked about Laporta a bit, Stroud. Kind of these early breakouts when we're talking about rookie guys that we're comfortable putting in our lineups when they're healthy. Are there any rookies that haven't popped yet that Fantasyland can still maybe either go buy in Dynasty or maybe look for on whether it's waiver wires or try to get for cheap in redraft leagues right now?
Yeah, I love the question, and I started immediately doing research in my end, and the first guy who popped up, and it might seem counterintuitive, but I think Kendre Miller of the Saints is someone that you should be getting. Kamara's still there, but I have we been really impressed with Kamara? It seems like that little extra, he had that juju in him, that pop and go. It seems like that's gone. Maybe it's the Sean Payton magic. Maybe it's age. What are the odds of Kamara making it throughout the season? We're just seeing Eckler. We just mentioned Eckler before, Dan. I forgot about him. He went down, right? He didn't look very good last night, but the whole Chargers didn't, they lost that game. So maybe a guy like Kendre Miller, week 11, 10 or 11, he might be getting those opportunities where he can make a difference. To me, the wide receiver, I mean, I like Rashee Rice, but I think people know him by now, but he hasn't really exploded. Now, the question is, will they just start feeding him? Like, I mean, how many times do I have to see Marquez Valdez-Scantling get an incomplete pass? Like, do I need to see that anymore? Or like, you know, like a fade pass to Sky Moore gets 3 yards out. Like, come on, man. At least Rashee Rice makes things happen. Like, why are they not giving him? Now, again, we're not in the locker room. We don't know what's going on. Is he running the wrong routes? Is he confused somehow? But, man, when your eyeball test just constantly tells you he's the best receiver on that team, but why is he not getting peppered? I just – that is mind-blowing to me in my book. I won't mention now. You have someone who you brought up later, so we'll talk about another guy who I loved watching this weekend, so we'll talk about him later. Why is Jalen Wyatt not on the field for the Giants? I don't understand this. I'm serious. I want to write Daboll and just go, what are you doing? You got a home run hitter. Your team has no speed. You got 6 useless slot receivers. You draft the Biletnikoff award winner. He falls into your lap. Why is he not on the field? If for no other reason, run a deep post, son. 2 routes. You're going to run the post or you're going to run the vertical. That's it. You got 2 routes. Why is he not on the field? The Giants have no one. No one. I don't understand.
He did get the most targets he's had so far yet this past week against the Bills with 4 targets. That's by far the most he had.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
you just said. He got the most targets with 4.
Yeah, and
how bad are those receivers? I mean, could they be any worse?
But could it be just a matter of Danny Dimes? Maybe, like, obviously he's not. He's not playing well. He's not getting the ball down the field well. So are we going to risk launching long bombs to a rookie, within the first 4 or 5 weeks?
Yeah, the offensive line is paper mache, basically.
Excellent points. But there is a thing called a wide receiver screen. There's this little thing called the jet sweep. There's other ways to get – I mean, because if there's one guy who could score a 60-yard touchdown on this Giants team, it's Jalen Hyatt.
Which they could clearly use.
I mean, there's no one else. So I like him. I bet you – I mean, it's hard to say with so many Dynasty leagues and we're so educated. But I think he's the type of player, if you might put out an offer right now, you might be able to get him because, look, you just said he got the most targets for. So you might be able to get someone who's a little frustrated and doesn't want to wait until Daboll or that offense waits up. Now, I agree with you. His skill set is getting open 30 yards, 40 yards down the field one-on-one. And the Giants don't have the time in the pocket. But then get the ball to him in other ways. But you're right about the offensive line is a problem for his skill set. But then that's the coach's job, isn't it? To find other ways to get the ball into your players' hands. So I think that's part of it. Another guy who I'm trying to trade for, and it seems to be a little hard, but just my leagues. And you guys, I know you play more Dynasty than I do. Tyjae Spears. What are the Titans doing with Derrick Henry? Like, why is he on their team? Send him to the Dallas Cowboys right now for a 3rd-round pick. What are you doing? He's a useless 18 running back. Tennessee. What we've seen out of Tyjae Spears are glimpses of real high-end production. Now, I don't think he could handle 20 touches. We did have the medical concerns, but obviously the Titans coaching staff cleared him and has not affected his play last year at Tulane, and he doesn't look like there's any remnants of Tyjae Spears right now. But bank on either A, Derrick Henry just gets hurt again because he is an aging running back, or B, they're smart finally, which that's a whole nother question. They unload him to a team that needs a running back. Because there's no way that a team as bad as Tennessee should have Derrick Henry on that football team right now.
Yeah, it's like that team, John, in your dynasty league that's holding like, you know, Nick Chubb, Derrick Henry, and like, you know, Devontae Adams, and they have no chance of winning or whatever.
There's no chance. Like, what are you doing? Because you could get a 3rd-round pick for Derrick Henry, right? Like, he still has some value. Don't mess up my scholarship.
I'm sure he might.
I mean, I just don't understand. So there's little things that don't make sense why you're sitting on him. So I like Tajay Spears if you can go out and get him. Or maybe Derrick Henry goes to Buffalo. I mean, there's places he can be a difference maker. You know, in Buffalo in the cold, how are you going to beat Miami if you're Buffalo? You got to get home field advantage. You got to get Miami to play in the cold. And what are you going to do? You're going to be physical with that defensive line that Miami's not very good. Because you're not going to outrun them. No one's going to outrun Miami if they're healthy. That's just so. You got to think they need a running back because James Cook is going to be a difference maker up in Buffalo.
Dan, you got anyone to add?
Those are the players.
Just real quick, I like all of those names that I mean, Kendre Miller, you know, everyone knows I love him. Rashid Rice, probably my most owned receiver, rookie-wise. Dan, and I know we drafted a lot of Spears. A lot of these guys that you mentioned. Is there anyone? There's one that stands out in my head, Dan. You usually like to say names ahead of me, so I'll let you go first. You might throw it out there. If not, I will, and then we can move on to the next.
All right. Yeah, I'm going to throw out Marvin Mims because he looks like by far the guy with the most juice in the entire Denver offense. But mysteriously, Sean Payton just doesn't want to use him. Which I get. Mims is not, he doesn't run every route in the route tree or anything like that. But at the very least, he ought to be used like you're talking about using Jalen Hyatt at the very least. And I think he's probably a little bit more advanced as a route runner than Hyatt, anyways. So that I just don't understand why Mims isn't getting the ball a lot more, why he's not out in routes a lot more, not getting snaps a lot more, all that kind of stuff. And I do have one other name, but I'm going to let JD say one just in case that's his. So,
does it rhyme with Mac Arbonne by any chance?
Actually, no, it doesn't. I was going to say.
I'm thinking of Zach Charbonnet. Just even if it's because of injury or whatever might happen in Seattle. I know they just had a bit of a tough matchup, but I like Zach Charbonnet. He's got the size, 6 foot 215. He's in that offense that likes to run the ball. And I mean, he's shown flashes. We talked about Spears. Yeah. Charbonnet's shown some flashes and he passes the eye test for me. I like Charbonnet a lot. I know, again, a guy that we drafted a lot in the district, and hopefully he can still pay off this year. Dan, who were you thinking about?
Yeah, I was thinking now is a good time to put in some offers for one Jackson Smith and Jigba. Because, he really hasn't done that much so far this year. I don't know how much he will do this year. He's running behind Lockett and Metcalf. But I think the Lockett problem is likely to go away next year. And, so I think JSN is, he's just kind of getting that almost redshirt year right now. And, but I do expect even later in the year, they'll probably try to open him up a little bit more, get him a little bit more involved. They love running their 12 personnel because they love to run out of it, and that takes JSN off the field. But just use that as a smokescreen right now to go ahead and get a player that for a cheaper price than what he would have cost you in May or June.
I agree with you on Marvin Mims. But didn't I see he got 5 snaps last week or the week before?
He's been getting very low volume last 3 games.
Gross.
Yeah.
It's so gross. I don't understand what. You're like, come on, man. Brandon Johnson's catching touchdown passes in the corner of the end zone, and Marvin Mims returned the kick.
Even when Mims did produce, then it was on low volume, right? If I'm not
right. Yeah. He's had nothing but low volume, no doubt about it. And I don't understand it because it's basically his fantasy points per touch have been off the chart. So efficient.
Yeah.
And, basically when you've got guys who are totally efficient and they're being starved for targets, you bet on the targets changing rather than the efficiency changing.
We got a question 1912 asking about QJ. What are we doing with him at the Chargers? He wasn't a guy we were very high on, Dan, in the district. John, I don't remember.
No,
I didn't think you were. What are your thoughts? Any hope for him this year with Mike Williams being injured?
Last night was very disappointing. What do you have? 2 targets, and I don't think he caught a pass. And you have to figure, if you're the staff, right? You're the Chargers coaching staff. You've lost Williams. You have a week to prepare. Because they had the bye, so you had 2 weeks, right? You had extra time, and you end up getting the guy 2 targets. But I'll say this, and I have my concerns about Quentin Johnston. But I said this. When you watch him broke out at TCU, they schemed plays for him. What I don't understand, it looked like last night they didn't even have one play for Quentin Johnston. Why? You're going to need the man from now until the end of the season to at least give you something. You didn't have 5. Say, Quentin, we got 5 plays for you. We're going to call some of these plays. When they call, you're the number 1 guy. Nothing? Like, that is like, to me, a failure of the coaching staff. So I'm not happy. I have my questions about him. But, man, the coaching staff didn't make his job any easier whatsoever. Like, that was bad coaching in my book last night.
Yeah, he's a guy that you got to at least say, you know what, we're gonna run him out, on a deep post or a fly or something like that, and just we're gonna throw him the ball 3 or 4 times a game, no matter what. I think he did have a couple of targets wiped out by penalty last night, but
okay,
but still, that doesn't really detract from your point at all, because he was still starved for targets.
Yes.
Someone was asking about another guy that we weren't very high on, Dameon Pierce in Houston. I was trying to pull up a draft board to see where he was going. He's like RB 32 or something like that right now.
Yeah, 4th, 5th round, something like that.
4th, yeah, that's kind of what I was remembering. So here it was like 6th round, but yeah, he's going in that 4 to 6 round. Do you think he's worth a roster spot? I'm guessing this question is for redraft.
John, I think it's for redraft.
Yeah, I think he's worth the roster spot. We are so starving at the running back position, and I do think he's dominating the snaps and the touches. I didn't look in the last 2 box scores, but I know the production hasn't been there. But I do think he's on the field, because when I watch the Texans, I'm watching CJ Stroud and Nico Collins and all the air, right? But I do think Pierce is on the field. So when I get that many snaps, I'm going to keep a running back, just because I can't imagine you being that – you have enough depth where you can get rid of him. You're just not getting production yet.
Yeah, and that's the position you want that depth at. He's
Yeah. Unless you're talking small leagues, small rosters, then I can understand. But, I think probably the biggest concern was that this past week, Devin Singletary outsnapped him. And, how much that means, I don't know. But we also know that Devin Singletary is not that great himself. So, this thing could ping back and forth a few times. It's very disappointing if you drafted him, with a quality pick. But sometimes you just got to say, you know what, I'm going to hang on and hope for better days ahead.
Let's go the other way. We talked about rookies that haven't popped. Are there any, John, that have popped where you want to caution or you think maybe we should temper expectation kind of on the back end of the season?
Ooh, I guess the one that stands out the most is Puka Nakua. Will he be able to keep up this production? I got him in the 4th round in all 3 of my Dynasty drafts, because it wasn't even he became the screaming value. I can't tell if I loved him that much, I would have drafted him in the 2nd round. So I can't tell, it's kind of like the Tom Brady. If the Patriots knew Tom Brady was great, he's not lasting until the 6th round. Puka, but he kept sitting there, and I'm like, I liked him, right? Like, I liked him, but I wondered where he was going to get opportunities because he fell in the draft, right? And then he was on the Rams. So I was like, okay, but look, he's been a star, but I don't think his numbers will be equivalent unless, knock on wood, something happens. I hope it doesn't to Cooper Kupp. That's the only way he could, I think, get peppered with 15 targets again. Let me see if there's anyone. I mean, Achane is hurt, so we can't talk about him. I guess Zay Flowers, but he hasn't really get a lot of these short little dump offs. Like, he's not really doing a lot. I don't know what Lamar Jackson can do with him. A rookie tight end, I think that's the X factor. What is Laporta going to do over the long season? It's a tough position, physically demanding. Can he keep this up? As now they got Jameson Williams. What if Gibbs gets on the field, takes some of those receptions away? So I think Laporta might have hit his ceiling right now because we do know the proverbial rookie wall is coming, right? And he's a tight end with lots of talent around him. So I don't know if he's going to be able to keep that up.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm pretty much at the same place. There's not anybody I'm really too concerned about, but Laporta for that reason I think makes a lot of sense. That's a good way to look at it.
A couple other tight ends that were highly drafted, I guess you could say, even especially like Dynasty rookie tight end premium leagues, tight end premium redraft tournaments. Kincaid was unfortunately the first one off the board. We've seen his snap shares, John, decrease every single week. He started 80% week 1 down to 52% in week 2. He's got no touchdowns, 17 receptions, 118 yards receiving in 5 games as a tight end, 26 fantasy points per game. What are your thoughts on him? And what are your thoughts on Micheal Mayer, who was a bit of a pleasant surprise this week against New England out there in Vegas?
So I'm going to talk about the latter first because I alluded to him. I thought Micheal Mayer was incredible this week. I actually saw in some redraft leagues, people have cut Micheal Mayer. So I'm looking through I'm like, all right. It's like that gif where the guy's screaming at the keyboard. And I'm like, I thought Micheal Mayer looked great. I mean, they obviously designed passes for him. There were a couple where he was so wide open. Now, obviously, the Patriots weren't ready for Micheal Mayer to get on the field and make that much of a difference in the passing game. But that's what I saw at Notre Dame. Micheal Mayer was my number 1 tight end. He was not the number 1 tight end in the draft, but he was my number 1 tight end. I thought he had a very high floor with his ceiling isn't there. He's not going to be, excuse me, I don't think he's a 1,200-yard tight end. I just don't think that's his game. I don't think he's going to get the breakaway 40-yard touchdowns. But I think he looked great. If Josh McDaniels is going to continue to scheme a few plays for Micheal Mayer, he will be a difference maker for the Raiders. And what we've seen now with Jakobi Meyers being a really good, Jakobi Meyers is one of the pleasant surprises in fantasy football this year. Now we have a new question. Can the quarterback get him the ball if it's Brian Hoyer or if it's Aiden O'Connell? So we have another X factor. But when you have Jakobi Meyers, Devontae Adams, and Josh Jacobs, well, where is Micheal Mayer on the pecking order of the defense? Right? They don't have to worry about him at all. So, they won't, so he's going to have opportunities. I like Micheal Mayer a ton. Kincaid. You have the Dawson Knox X factor. Obviously, the Bills like Knox. He brings something on the table that they like. He's a professional tight end. He's not a difference maker. He's not going to be a star. But he does what you want as a coaching staff. Josh Allen obviously likes Dawson Knox because Josh Allen has enough say, I like Knox on the field. And then we have the rise of Gabe Davis, right? Gabe Davis has been better this year. So when you have Stephon, did I read that right? Does Stephon Diggs have 5 100-yard games already this season? I think I was reading that.
I believe that. Yeah, I would believe that. That would be. I'll look it up,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, he's been great. So you have a star in the Stephon Diggs. You have Gabriel Davis playing well. And then you have Knox and James Cook. So
Yeah, you're correct. You are correct.
Yeah,
sir.
so I don't know where the targets are going to come for Dalton Kincaid this early. And again, this is where we don't have the knowledge. What is Dalton Kincaid doing in practice? You know, we can't get beat reporters don't tell us anything anymore of value almost. So we don't know is Dalton Kincaid, does he not understand the whole playbook? Is he running some wrong routes to get the coaching staff mad, or Josh Allen can't rely on him? We don't know because no one gives us those reports. But I bet you Dawson Knox doesn't make those mistakes. So I think I'm very concerned about Dalton Kincaid this year.
And Dan, we've talked about we talked about it a bit last week. Gabe Davis has stepped up. James Cook has stepped up. So that kind of pushes Kincaid back if he's not necessarily kind of grabbing that kind of role where he's getting more targets and even now more snaps at this point.
Yeah, this is where you have to take a step back and look at an offense as a whole. And basically, this offense is Diggs, and then after that, it's a very broad target tree.
Yeah.
It's like I know it's not 50%, but it feels like 50% of it's going to Diggs, right?
Yeah.
And then the rest of it is all we've got all those guys you mentioned. You can rattle off about 7-8 Bills receivers that are part of the passing tree. And none of them is really getting that many targets other than Gabe Davis occasionally. So Dawson Knox, not Dawson Knox, Dalton Kincaid's got to work himself into a place where he is, like more reliable, more, a target that Allen wants to throw to more than Gabe Davis, because Gabe Davis is the only other guy who's really got that much value in the passing game. The running backs certainly have some, but as far as, like wide receivers and tight ends, Gabe Davis is the only other guy other than Diggs who's got that, even like some sort of startable value. So until Kincaid can surpass him, you just got to leave him on your bench.
Dan, he completed, it feels like it because it is even more. So 30 attempts for Allen last week, 16 targets were to Diggs, and 19 completions for Allen. He's getting peppered. Yeah. And that's, they win that way, and that's successful. He's just going to keep doing it. Every once in a while, he'll launch one to Davis, to keep Davis after it up. But, now they're talking about bringing in, do we care, John, that you've got Leonard Fournette kind of visiting now with Damian Harris being out with a bit of an injury?
I'm surprised Fournette hasn't been signed yet. I think that would be a good move for the Buffalo Bills. Obviously, it seems with Latavius Murray getting those goal line carries, they did sign Damian Harris. We had heard rumors that they did not want Josh Allen to run the ball as much. Well, it has become evident if you watch Buffalo, they're not going to let their franchise quarterback take those deadly hits. I wonder if the 9 touchdowns rushing, those might be gone. Hopefully we'll still get 3, maybe 4. But they're bringing, I would assume if you're bringing in Leonard Fournette, and he's been a good short yardage runner in his life. He might not have reached the expectations that we wanted when he came out with Christian McCaffrey in that class. But if you watch him at Jacksonville, then you watch him at Tampa Bay with Tom Brady, there's 2 things Leonard Fournette can do well. He can catch the dump-off pass and get the first down with that big body. And I think the Bills are saying, why don't we bring him in? Take a look, because he could help us here in a pinch.
I thought you were going to talk about eating burgers, but Dan.
He might like those too.
Who doesn't miss Fat Lenny? Come on.
Oh, hey.
The Fat Lenny jokes are fantastic, no doubt about it.
I wonder, I was actually wondering what he looks like shape-wise right now. Like, I just don't know.
Yeah, I don't either. But yeah, it's a great question to ask because you would think with all the running back injuries that have happened, that Fournette would have been taking some visits at this point.
Yeah.
And why he's not, I'm not sure. Is he not healthy? Is he just saying, you know what, I want to be playoff Lenny? I want to be Lombardi Lenny, and that's all I'm interested in. So I'm going to wait until like week 14 or something like that to sign with a team. I don't know.
We saw Kareem Hunt who came in late. He went off this week with I think 20 plus fantasy points. Got himself a nice touchdown. Let's go to Baltimore, guys.
Kareem Hunt looked good. I did.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. So you would think that Fournette could easily come in, especially in a good offense like the Bills. He complements Cook nicely, I believe. I think that'd be a nice add. And I'm like you, John. He's on the back end of a lot of my rosters, especially in those fantasy pros, like those big tournament leagues. Just because he seemed like the obvious, him and Hunt just seemed obvious, like they're going to be at it eventually. So hopefully we see it. A guy that is coming off injuries in Baltimore. I mean, Gus the Bus is there now that JK's hurt. He's in rehab with Aaron Rodgers right now, post Achilles surgery. Anything on Keaton coming back? His style in Baltimore. Do you think he's going to carve himself a nice role there with this opportunity, or do you think he's kind of another one of these running backs, rookies, young running backs in this offense that's going to be kind of, like Dan talks about, narrow target trees, is a narrow offensive tree in Baltimore with Lamar, running and throwing the ball?
So first, let me say, Keaton Mitchell was one of my favorite players in all of college football last year. His numbers and what he did at East Carolina were unfreaking believable. He was a true home run hitter. I bet you if I looked at the deep stats, he probably had like 10 touchdowns beyond 40 yards. He was unbelievable, and his yards per carry were off the charts. But two concerns with me. He's a little undersized. If my memory, he should be about 180. Am I about in the ballpark?
He's listed at 179. I was just looking at that. 5'8", 179 on Player Profiler.
Mm-hmm.
That's a tough size. So what I would be banking for, because he doesn't fit the mold of a Baltimore running back, right? We usually see bigger, more between the tackles runner. Now, I don't even like making this analogy, but I will make it for this show. He's a poor man's Devon Achane. He is. But you can't think on that efficiency in the Baltimore offense. I mean, what makes Mike McDaniel such a great coordinator is he gets his playmakers one-on-one in space, right? Have you ever seen a Baltimore Raven one-on-one in space? So, like, I look at Mitchell's skill set and what he brings to the table, and I don't think it fits the Ravens scheme. Not at all, because I want this man one-on-one on the edges. I want the wide pitch, or I want the quick screen, the quick pass, right? He needs a lane, but you give him a lane, and Mitchell's gone. And at 179, at 5'8", can he really take more than 12 touches a game?
Yeah.
So that, if you're okay, at this point, we're looking for warm bodies. If you have the roster space, there's nothing wrong with picking up Keaton Mitchell and just sitting on him. I just don't have faith that that's the offense that can use him.
Yeah, if you need a starter now, you're not necessarily grabbing him. But if you want depth or possible popping on your bench, Dan, anything to add with the running back in Baltimore? We're running out of time here. We're gonna have to squeeze some rapid fire.
Yeah, I think John nailed it. He's just not a great fit. Basically he's like a little bit smaller Justice Hill, who is also very fast. So I don't know. I mean, we haven't seen Hill pop for 4 years. He's finally popping a little bit now because they're pretty much out of options. So maybe Keaton can do something. Maybe he's a better, more instinctive runner than Justice Hill. That would be more for John to say than me. But I don't hold out a ton of hope for Keaton Mitchell. Yeah,
it's two guys you want in Baltimore: Mandrews and Lamar, and that's it.
That's it.
Let's go to Uncle Ted. He's been patient. Zach Evans or Jordan Mason? We've got news that CMC is back, but you've got kind of that Elijah Mitchell versus Jordan Mason out in San Fran. And John, Zach Evans right now, probably the hottest piece of ace on the waiver wire right now.
I'm taking Zach Evans because if he earns that starting spot, he could really produce. Jordan Mason is hampered on the depth chart, and we all know Christian McCaffrey's healthy, which it looks like he's going to – long-term, he should be healthy. Mason is not really going to be the guy. He was interested coming out of Georgia Tech. But I want Zach Evans because I want to hit the home run.
What's your expectation before I go to Dan with Evans? We've seen Kyren Williams just tear it up, like couple touchdowns a game, just volume, everything you want. How much of that can we get from Evans?
If Evan gets 70% of the touches of Kyren Williams, I would be very happy. Okay. What he's going to do with that, I can't exactly tell you. He was a disappointment at TCU and Mississippi. So, I mean, I do like his upside. There are flashes of brilliance on his college tape, but I just don't know if he can do it for the long term. But if he gets that volume, 70%, I'll take that any day.
Dan, how much of your budget, $1,000 he's spending on Evans if you need a running back right now?
It really depends. Yeah, how much I need a running back. Because I don't think he's going to, I think Kyron's pretty well got this job locked up as long as he's healthy. I guess I don't see Zach Evans coming out there and really tearing the job away from Kyren Williams. What we're more concerned about is, can he tear away a piece of it? And I think that's a little more possible, but it's probably going to be a little bit more of the low value touches, more of the rushing, less of the receiving type thing. And, so for that reason, I'm not going to put a ton into Zach Evans. If I really, really needed a running back, I might go 150 or something like that, 188, I don't know, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I think you're probably looking at maybe – because the thing is, Dan, that because of how good Kyron's been, they're going to want him back soon too, right? Like they're pretty competitive. They've been decent, and the way this team is right now with Stafford at quarterback, it's not like they're, thinking they're going to be on a 5 to 10 year run here. They want to win now, so they're going to want Kyron back ASAP. Appreciate the question, Uncle Ted. You guys have been awesome in the chat. We got a couple of quick trade questions, John. We're going to run by you dynasty wise. Dan, you've got a question with a couple of quarterbacks. Is this a trade that you've been asked, or where's this trade come from?
Well, this trade is coming from, I have been offered Lawrence plus Jamison Williams plus a second for Justin Herbert. I'm thinking about turning that around and asking for Lawrence and a first for Herbert. Thoughts? Is this
like just background? Is this competitive? Reno mode?
I am not competitive in that league. I am looking to. It was basically a productive struggle.
So what happens when you don't share the team with me, Dan? John,
it was a startup with a productive struggle in mind. So I'm working on collecting first.
What do you think, Dan? Sorry, John.
I would immediately want the Lawrence first round pick side. There's no question in my mind. I'm willing to take the risk on Lawrence. I still believe him. So Lawrence.
Would you do it with the Jamison second or no?
I would, but I would really push for the first. I would try to
just helping you out, Dan.
But I would
cover all those angles.
If comes shove, I'll take Williamson in the second.
All right, so I've got a Reno mode, similar idea here, tight end preems, super flex, just Justin Jefferson, a lot of people not knowing what to do with him. I actually bought him today. I sent Chase and Mixon for Jefferson and a 25 third. Just, again, Reno mode, love having Jefferson in Dynasty, and I don't need him this year, so not really worried about, hamstringies or anything.
That's an interesting trade. I love it. I mean, you put it out there. I mean, there's no question about that. I like Jefferson better than Chase. So, I mean, you just got to hope that somehow he gets the quarterback. That's all. The only advantage I think you have with Chase is you have Burrow. So that's the only, but I do think Jefferson's the better player.
Yep, totally agree. I think John's spot on there. and I'm a huge Jefferson fan, so I would take the Jefferson side as well. Though, man, Jamar has really been turning it on. I'll tell you what, people were worried about T. Higgins. It's just not happening for T. Higgins. There's no question about where this offense flows through in its chase.
I moved him off that roster last week, so I moved a couple T. Higgins off pieces in the last couple weeks. We got next week, Dan, on Thursday. Well, we've got obviously Thursday tailgate this week at noon. We will look at the Thursday night game specifically, prop bets, start sits, whatever you want to talk about. We'll talk about. Join us live in the chat on the GOAT District YouTube channel. And then on Thursday night at 7 p.m., we roll pregame, and we'll be looking at kind of the rest of the weekends in the weekend tailgate. Next week, Thursday tailgate, Dan, we got Mike Shopes from the Deep End, who you guys were watching probably earlier on this very channel. And I don't know, trying to get Theo or somebody to join us here next Tuesday night. But you guys were awesome in the chat as usual. John, just like Dan said, I want to go run through sprinklers right now, or go streaking, as the movie says. After spending an hour talking fantasy with you, you're always fun to talk to. You're always full of information. Love the takes. You're pretty accurate with them, which we love. But in all seriousness, remind the people where they can find you out there on the X machine, of course, the big board, and anywhere else they can find your goodness.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. I just want to give one note. If you need a running back in the draft in a Dynasty league, you're in trouble next year. The running back class has collapsed. Like literally collapsed. Right? I mean, it's bad. Right now it's bad, but that's a different story.
Hopefully you guys stuck to the end of the show, because that's probably an important note to know if you're playing Dynasty.
Yes, trade for people. But that's it. Now the wide receivers are loaded. But anyways, find me on the X machine at Gridiron Skull 91. I couldn't afford the A and the R, so it's Gridiron Skull 91. Go check me out there. All my college stuff is on Fantrax right now, and all my DFS stuff is on Football Diehards.
Dan, it was nice to have you back, brother. It's nice to see you and the wife living it up, though. That retired life, you guys are having fun, some baseball games and, some boat rides and all. But no, I'm glad to have you back. We'll be back on Thursday, guys. Check us out on the GOAT District channel. Make sure you are subscribed to the podcast on your favorite platform. If you're on Apple, make sure you're on the latest with the stream, the most updated stream. Guys, go crush tomorrow night, waiver wires, FFPC. Make sure you go crush that week 7. We'll help you tonight, rest of the week, to get those dubs. We'll check you all later.
GOAT District, the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text. That trash offer's the best. You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden, they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man. Y'all know what to do. It's the and I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In Package to continue to make all this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.